Welcome back to the Masters of Recon Podcast, your top automotive refinishing podcast with your hosts, Corey Kleinfeld
and Ryan Brewer. Enjoy the show, everyone.
Welcome back to the Masters of Recon Podcast. This show today is sponsored by RestorFX, and we are lucky enough to have the founder and the CEO of RestorFX in studio with us today to talk about how they started, their growth journey, and all the new things that are coming. Welcome to the show, Nick and Alex.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us, guys. Yeah, really appreciate it. I'm excited about this one. But I've been following you the last little bit and really excited.
Yeah. Thanks for helping us make it happen. Honestly, it's been really fun so far. We're a few episodes in, but just to get started, honestly, like I love the chronological timeline. Let's go back to, where did the idea of RestorFX come from? How did that idea and the original product actually get started? We'll go from there.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I guess it depends on how far we want to go back.
When I was 5 years old.
Yeah, right. No, I guess I'll start right after high school. So my father had a kind of reconditioning operation going. And Corey, you could probably relate to some of this as well. Mm-hmm. So got into recon, any from upholstery repair to glass, window, all sorts of stuff. And so obviously, as the oldest son, kind of going in his footsteps kind of deal in the summers, coming helping him out and all that. And that was kind of what I did for quite some time. And then 2001 is when I graduated. And throughout this time, we had this, kind of a concept idea of what RestorFX is today. Very basic. After graduated, basically started my own center, as we refer to them now. Had my own kind of territory, worked it. And I would say that it was not something that I was 100% happy with, but you made money doing it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so what we did, or what I did basically, took on the challenge because I looked at this product and technology and I'm like, man, there's so much, like we could do so much with this. And I always envisioned it, like, to be completely honest, we used to work at the kind of the C lot kind of cars, you know what I mean? The little junky mm-hmm. ones. And I remember one day I was just sitting there like applying to I forget what it was, some old Toyota Tercel or something like that. Yeah. And then I look over and I'm like, there's a big Toyota store, brand new. And I'm like, man, I want to do those cars. You know what I mean? And, but I'm like, I wouldn't feel good about applying that product to a vehicle like that, like a newer car, because I knew the limitations of it. Right. And so that kind of was the pivotal moment for me to say, you know what, I need to dive into this a little bit more. I need to perfect it. And I need to really dial the technology in. And so I think that was a journey that took over four or 5 years, and slowly working with professionals that knew a lot more than I did at the time. And as the technology evolved, I would add, other different technologies to it, for the preparation steps and stuff like that. Then 2007, and then, the company grew. I was making good money back then, and got married in 2005, which was when my wife is like, well, that's another story, but it was more like I got married. I'm like, man, now I got to feed two, I got to feed the family here now. So that was kind of something that really was another kind of kick in the pants to like, hey, let's get things moving, And then 2007 came around. We basically put a brand to it. We didn't have the RestorFX brand back then. Put a brand to it, put a name to it, and then sold our first license in 2008. And that's kind of the gist of it at the end of the day. And then
that's awesome.
We haven't looked back. We haven't looked back.
Yeah. I'm going to pause you right there because we're going to get to this stuff now today as well. But I just wanted to comment real quick. Like every vendor, every dent guy, touch-up guy, everybody starts that way where they're applying to like the fixing B-lot, C-lot stuff. And I'm like, it's not that good, but I'm making some money. Like I got to start there. And you look at the other places, you're like, that's where I want to get, whether it's the Toyota store or retail customers where you want to like blow their minds away, especially nowadays, because now we can, back when you started, you couldn't, but now we can see other people blowing people's minds. And then we want to be like that. So fantastic story. So there was like, you covered like an 8-year span, obviously in a couple minutes. It's really hard, obviously, when we have a 1-hour constraint, but like
totally.
What was the biggest struggle for you from going from maybe I'm saying it wrong, essentially wiping on some version of a RestorFX on a really bad car and making it better to where you are today? What was the most difficult part? Was it figuring out the science, like the actual science behind the product? Was it the sales? Was it opening? Like what was that?
Oh, that's a loaded question, man. There's a lot that back in the day there we used to do, I was young and really, how would I say it? I think the biggest challenge was the actual fine-tuning the actual technology, the actual product itself, in the leveling aspect, making it easy enough to be able to apply it and not run into issues, setup time, all of that. There was a lot of dialing in that we did when it came to fine-tuning the actual properties of the self-leveling, the adhesion, and workability. I think workability was probably one of the toughest things that we had to work with. And
that's probably why, Alex, you're still the best, because you work with a product. I mean,
seriously,
from a very difficult standpoint.
Yeah, it's a valid point there. Yeah,
this guy,
to be honest,
Alex is like Jesus when he applies this stuff.
It's so weird.
Whoa! That's a big fill. That's some big shoes to fill there, man.
As good as we are with pushing dents, it's like that's as good as you are with RestorFX. And I think anybody in the industry, whether you're a wheel guy or a dent guy, you can contest to that.
And honestly, Ryan, I feel like maybe as a center yourself too, I feel like the application and workability, even though it's come that far, is still probably the hardest part of the process. Like, selling it and doing it, but like it's possible now, and you can train somebody fairly quickly, but it's not literally a wipe on, wipe off. There are mistakes to be made during the application process still. And so it still is not a completely mindless process that you can train somebody in a day. Like you're not washing a car, so even after all of that, you're saying like that's the hardest part. It's still probably the hardest part, but it's doable now, which is a testament to actually having some skill to applying the RestorFX coding. It's not just you don't train somebody in a day to do it. There is actually a learning curve, which I like.
Yeah. Well, the beauty here too is also you guys are just a couple of years into this. So if you came in 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, it'd be a different ball game, So what I condone my team and what they've done well is put the support mechanisms, changing up and the training regimen and all that, and ultimately adding different techniques and exploring it with still to perfect the art form, And so that is something that I really look up to my team on that, because they've done a fantastic job. And we're also not done always. Right? We're always evolving as a company, as a technology. And so, we always have things brewing and updates and all this internally.
I feel like at this point, let's say 2022, is you guys, the company in general, after how long you been around? 20 years? Something like that?
2001, I would say, was kind of like
21. Yeah. So after 21 years, I feel like you guys have finally hit the stride, because at least in the dent community, Brian and I, within the last 2 years, really, all of a sudden everyone is like, what is this RestorFX stuff? Like, what's going on with that? Right. And so it's fascinating to say, and that this is how businesses start, right? First 5 years, essentially, it was you struggling to put stuff on C-Lot cars and make it look good. 20 years later, even you, like you said, even 5 years later, we would have been shocked at the difference of the product, apparently, which is great.
Yeah.
But always evolving. But I feel like now is a point for RestorFX where it's never done, right? Even with PDR, we're never like, okay, we can fix everything, but it's marketable. It's at a point where it's scalable and teachable and repeatable and all that stuff. Do you agree?
Yeah. And we've been able to improve the business model, which is a big part of all this as well. And that's why we can see for many years, we were building a lot of foundational aspects, and Nick can add to that as well. But a lot of foundation building to prepare for mass marketing and mass growth at the end of the day,
Both of you guys, Nick and Alex, did y'all think that this company would be where it is today when y'all first started?
I thought we would be probably further along by now.
I'm on the same page.
We talked about this in Orlando. It's like you guys are literally changing an industry, which is like it's unheard of because we thought it was, everything was already set.
Everything was done. Yeah.
Like, right. So I feel like the fact that you guys are changing an industry and doing so well at it, that's the reason why, we're so passionate about it.
Our biggest struggle now, obviously, the first 10 years or so was trying to perfect the product for scalability and, consistency. But our next challenge is trying to have people understand what RestorFX is and making sure people aren't confused by it, right? I mean, we are very similar like PDR, where when you do the dent repair, it's obvious what it is. So when we get an opportunity to show people in person what RestorFX does, it's very obvious. But I think that, we have thousands of photos online of before and after photos. And I think we actually started that trend. That wasn't a polishing or detailing trend. That was actually a RestorFX trend.
That is true.
We were the first people on the internet, at least, to start doing before and after photos in terms of what we do. But I think people just kind of got used to seeing everything on the internet is just it's before and after. It's just, they don't.
What happens in between?
What happens in between? So we were obviously, focused more on building the systems, getting the whole system into play, figuring out the training aspects of it. Now we've shifted obviously into the market and consistency of the brand and what we're doing and how we're doing it. And so that's been a big change and probably the next big hurdle that we're starting to get over. But we're making definitely some strides into that as well. And we're starting to have people understand what the difference is compared to us and, let's say, a coating or us in any other type of detailing or reconditioning service.
Ryan, when you asked that question, I was thinking, I thought both of them, to be perfectly honest with you, you're going to be like, I'm blown away by it, by how far we've gone. I think you were too, but Nick was like, I think we could be further. I want to point out that Ryan, you and I sat down with these guys at MTE in Florida. What was that? January, I think, of this year. And had a conversation. And I think all four of us agree, which is why RestorFX sponsored the podcast. We're doing the podcast. We're obviously little fanboys of RestorFX. I admit it. It is what it is. I think it's awesome. We all can tell, and Nick and Alex too, obviously can see what's possible with the product. Like you said, I think we'd be further along. But the amount of respect I have for these guys, they've literally spent decades laying a foundation to make it possible to grow. Especially nowadays, I see almost everybody. I've made the mistake too. We try to grow too fast, or you're like, this is a big idea, it could be this, and you forget that a huge skyscraper has to get built on a foundation. So, mad respect to you guys for knowing what it can be, and even still, Nick saying like, I thought we'd be way bigger, but knowing you can't be bigger until you set that foundational part. So,
some years ago, we put in the 5 pillars of a successful RestorFX Center. And the middle one has always been our focus, which is quality and consistency in the work and the delivery of our finished product to a customer. We always knew, at least from the very beginning, that if we ever failed on that, the whole company would fail. And so we never were quick to grow too fast. we've, obviously we'd hope to be in a position. We're also very happy with where we're at right now, and we are starting to grow in pretty amazing ways. From a global standpoint, we have a pretty big footprint, and we're making some awesome headway in a lot of different markets around the world. But foundation of the quality aspect of it was always our middle pillar. And if that ever fell out, the whole thing would cave in. And so that's something that we always stuck true to. And we're really happy for it, because we maybe not had a company today if we didn't.
Right. Yeah,
that's true. How many locations in countries, since you touched on that? Like, I mean, it's not just the US, guys. This is literally worldwide, which is pretty cool.
About growth. We actually were growing quicker in international markets than we were in the US. Not to say that we couldn't, but our focus is where is the interest? We're getting a lot of interest in different parts of the world. Well, let's tackle that. Let's take that on. And Alex and I spent before COVID, but a good decade almost traveling internationally to represent our products. And so as of today, we are in over 45 countries that we either have a master franchise partnership, distribution type partnership, or single centers in a particular market or country. But total, we are distributing and shipping products into 45 countries. We have 3 other major headquarters that we are kind of growing similarly to where we have here in the US, which is we have a team down in Argentina that oversees all of Latin America. And they've been with us as one of our first partners going back 10 years ago. So they've been a huge part of the Spanish, influence and so forth. So everything is translated and put together in the Spanish markets awesome. And whatnot. So that was kind of our first international partnership. We now have a European headquarters near Stockholm, and a team there is overseeing that and taking care of our European area. And just as of about a year ago, we have a Middle East partnership that they're overseeing all of the Middle East area. So we have here, obviously, headquarters in Bellingham, Washington, where we're from, then in Dubai, in Stockholm, and in Argentina and Buenos Aires. So these are our 4 areas where we really have a lot of directors and focus to be able to support and continue the growth there. And the Asian market is still on its way, but we have some new centers opening up in that area too that will probably spawn into some sort of partnership to continue to grow that market. But all simultaneously, we're working together. But these different markets are building in itself, and we're opening up anywhere between 2 to 5 new centers per month. So one of the fastest growing automotive concepts in the world at this point, and it's pretty exciting in that sense. And with entering into the PDR market and some of the other things that we've been doing in the US, we've seen probably the biggest growth here in the US over the last few years. But we're making headway in a lot of these markets, and we're about 250 locations globally in terms of actual centers as of now. And like I said, about 2 to 5 new centers opening up per month.
That's awesome. Like Nick talking about that, like while sitting in front of a world map, is just like,
yeah.
I don't know why.
That was on purpose.
You see this,
I was like, this is great.
Where is all
the pins where all the centers are?
Right? That's right.
Where is all the product for RestorFX made in the US? Where is it made?
We manufacture here in Bellingham, Washington. We have our distribution warehouse headquarters up here in the Pacific Northwest. And yeah, this is, as of now, all product are manufactured through this facility and get distributed to these other regions.
How so you're 250 centers, 2 to 5 a month. Everyone lives in a world now where there's shortages on everything, right? Like, I can't get parts, I can't get this. Like, what's the manufacturing capacity for you guys? Like, what if by next year you have, instead of 250, you have 350?
Well, we just invested into a whole new manufacturing system to be able to manufacture our RestorFX products. And I think we talked about this because this is a question that a lot of people ask is, hey, what's your capacity here? We, as of right now, are only about 10%, maybe 15% capacity of our actual manufacturing abilities. So we are plenty ready for growth. And once we probably get up to 30 to 40% of where we're at here, we will start to consider manufacturing in these other international regions, which we've already had conversations with. But we're just not quite there yet. But hopefully in the next year or so, we'll probably start looking into that.
That's awesome. I'm curious, as you were talking about all that, how, I mean, it seems like the growth in other countries was, I don't know if I would say easier or more receptive to it, or there was more response to that. And maybe I'll get into an area where you don't want to say certain things, but I'm gonna push anyways. Is it because in the US there's a massive industry based off of quote unquote traditional paint correction that essentially RestorFX really hurts? It not completely gets rid of per se, but is a very quick and easy alternative to. Is that part of the reason why? Or is there,
I don't know if I have an exact answer. There's probably multiple things, but I would say the biggest reason why we have growth is from the internet. It's people seeing, like, we ultimately can influence any market we're in, but wherever those markets have originally contacted us on is where we focused. So rather than chasing down certain markets here in the US that we're trying to prove to them that we got something, we took naturally what was coming to us and the interest that was coming to us, and we focused on those because those were the people that had the vision. Those were the partners that wanted to do something different in their market. So I think that's probably the number one reason why we have a pretty big international footprint and maybe not as big in other markets, just because we haven't been there yet, or we haven't been exposed to that market yet. But that's probably the most natural reason. And that's probably still true today. We are just taking the interest that we have and being able to accelerate that.
Alex, what I'll ask it, what's the difference between RestorFX and paint correction? How do they compete?
Correction and RestorFX. Yeah. So, that's a good question. Traditional paint correction, actually, it's interesting that we bring that up, paint correction, because it's not called paint correction for a very long time. Paint correction is a fairly new verbiage that's been used, which I can appreciate. You're correcting the paint, but at the end of the day, what are you actually doing, right? When it comes to paint,
what did it used to be called? Just out of curiosity, if I can.
Cut and polish, buffing,
cut and polish,
whatever.
Sure. Yeah. Paint correction is the marketing term, apparently.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. No, it was brilliantly marketed. To tell it's because nobody wants to hear, "Oh, you're cutting away at my clear coat," right? Right. So I would say, the biggest difference is ultimately at the end of the day, and don't get me wrong, the technology in paint correction, polishes and waxes and all of these pads and all this has developed and grown and evolved to a point where it's quite impressive. Kudos to them. And but ultimately, the bigger difference here with RestorFX and what we do, as opposed to the paint correction guys or anybody who's paint correcting, is ultimately what they are doing is they're cutting away at your clear coat, chasing the damage, right? And don't get me wrong, we do some of that to some extent, but not widespread, And ultimately, we are replacing with about 10 to 12 microns of transparent clear product that, after it cures and dries and properly adheres to the existing clear coat, we're able to treat it like a regular paint finish. And so I think that would be the biggest difference with what we do at RestorFX and paint correctors. There will always be room for paint correctors. Yeah. And so we're just trying to take a little sliver off of that market.
Yeah.
We don't need much, just a bit.
Alex is super knowledgeable, and so I'll put it in like quick and dirt. Like if a customer asks me and I'm selling RestorFX, not paint correction or cut and polish, I say, the typical paint correction, they're going to take away, let's say, for example, half of your clear coat to get down to the scratch, or a third of it, or whatever.
Well, depends how deep the scratch is, right? Exactly.
Yeah. So they take away clear coat to get to the bottom of the scratch. We actually prep the clear coat. So we take away a little bit of clear coat, but then we add the product, which actually either brings it back up or even more. Paint correction can be done 2 times, 3 times maybe on the life of a car if someone's really good and the first 2 weren't too bad. Or
you want to hold on.
But RestorFX can be done as many times as you want, unlimited times, right?
Yeah,
because we're adding.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, if you want to get to the finer details, that's a very valid way of putting it.
So, and then another question for guys that have been in paintless dent repair, we're big on like, let's not get your car painted, right? Does it show up? Does this stuff show up on paint meters? Like if someone looks at a RestorFX panel versus a non-RestorFX panel with a paint depth gauge, which does it show up?
That's the beauty of something like this that we do. It doesn't show up as a repaint because you're on average about a tenth of what today's factory finishes are. When there's a repaint, you're looking at significant micron build, unless this is done in a very high-end professional setting with the body shop setting that will match up as close as possible. But no one's doing that. It's you can't. You're doing that on the super high-end stuff, right? The exotics.
For sure.
So, but yeah, that's the beauty of this too, is that we are in a way preserving a lot of that originality of the paint. Or the clear coat here as well. So we're not it's not showing up, and it doesn't raise any flags, which is one of the amazing things about something like this.
That's why dent guys like it. That's why I like it so much. I mean, basically I'm, paintless dent repair and paintless clear coat repair are the 2 things that I'm doing in your vehicle. I did a demo for a guy the other day who's been in the car business 30 years. He found me from another dealership who referred me over. He brought me a car that had, the bird poop stains on it. It happens a lot out here. We have wine country. Birds eat wine grapes and then they fly over, and then very acidic poops on all these cars. Other states too. We got it, right? So it starts to etch into it. If you don't wash it off in days and it's 110 out here, you've all seen it. I did it for him. He was amazed. He showed it. He sold it to a dealership, a different place. But he called me yesterday. He's like, I don't know if I asked you the question directly enough, and I just want to ask, did you do any paint on the car? And I'm like, no. And he's like, I've been doing this for 30 years. Every time I sell a car with paint on it or with different micron build, essentially is what he's saying, is I have to tell a story about the car. I have to be like, here's what happened. Here's why I repainted it, right? Even Carfax is like, repaint the hood or the fender, and it says front end collision. It's like, there's a story attached to it now. And it's like, why? With paintless dent repair and RestorFX, there's no story attached to it. It's gone. It's done. It looks like we were never there. I think that's why Ryan and I have talked about this multiple times. That's why we're so excited about it. It's like what we do with dents for paint.
Yeah.
Or for clear.
And to think about this, a lot of people think about RestorFX maybe as a coating, but it's actually not a coating. A coating is something that would be placed on the top surface. It would adhere to it, and at some point wash off, wear off. You would reapply it. RestorFX is a flux coat. It actually is something similar to a weld. When you're welding 2 pieces of metal together, it's an actual permanent bond. When RestorFX goes in there, it's a permanent bond within that original paint finish, and so it's one and the same. All we're doing is building it back, restoring it, and building it back together in a permanent sense. And so we don't really want people to think about RestorFX as a coating, but more as a permanent kind of restoration process.
The science behind it is that we can't see it, but if you put clear coat under a microscope, it's very porous, right? So there's pores inside of it. The RestorFX fills those pores and mixes, essentially bonds with the original clear coat. Is that a good way to say it?
Yeah, think about like heating up the clear coat, getting it liquid again. And the original clear coat, and then our liquid goes on top of it and becomes one with it through that chemical process.
Yeah, and then a ceramic coat, a coating, something that's different, because I've answered this question to literally 100 people. Completely different product. What that does is goes over the top of the porous clear coat, seals it in, is harder than manufacturer clear coat and RestorFX clear coat. Harder, hydrophobic, UV resistant, but it wears off because it's on top of, not within. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. It does go into the pores. Don't get me wrong.
The ceramic.
Yeah, it strengthens a little bit, right? But basically creates like this intertwined net over top of that clear coat to be able to help and protect it. But yes, it does wear out over time, from abrasion to washing and to surface contamination and all that. So that
I'm using Fluxcoat from now on.
Yeah.
Fluxcoat.
Thank you. We're trying to make it work.
I think like for you, Corey, I don't know about you, but for me, I can contest to how hard this stuff gets. I have a dent guy that's been a painter for me for a very long time, and I kept telling him about this stuff, and he wound up doing his own truck. My guys actually installed it, but he didn't, and he wound up fixing a dent on it the next day. And for him to come up to me and be like, dude, this stuff is so hard. He was beating on it with a metal knockdown, and it didn't even put a divot in it. We do that on a GM or a Toyota.
Yeah, originally.
It's divoting the paint pretty bad to where we have to sand and then polish that off. And after that, I started knocking down on these panels with a metal knockdown, and dude, it doesn't even put a dent in it. So I think that this stuff is pretty hard.
That's true. And I'm honestly, I've glue pulled on one within 3 days.
Like collision glue pull too. I'm not no little dent. I pulled a big quarter panel dent out with some collision glue and thinking that something was going to come off. Dude, it perfectly fine. It was unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
When we look at this, we don't ever want to confuse people with a coating like ceramic to RestorFX, because we want people to understand that at the end of the day, RestorFX is for restoring. But it does, in a sense, upgrade that paint finish to a high quality paint finish. So let's take a Nissan paint finish, right? And you're going to put RestorFX over top of that. Well, we did, in some sense, create more of like a European, high solid kind of paint finish, like from.
That's how I explain it. I explain it.
I need to explain it like that. I don't do that, but I definitely do.
Audi has one of the hardest paints that I've ever worked on, paint corrected and push dents on. And anytime I talk about RestorFX and ceramic guys want to ask me, what's the hardness on it? I'm like, dude, I don't know the hardness, actual scientific hardness, but I'm gonna put it up there with Audi, BMW, and those guys because it's very hard.
Yeah. Well, what's happening these days is manufacturers are being kind of pushed. Car manufacturers are being pushed to start using more, eco-friendly products, which are not proven at the end of the day at this point, but they're being pushed. And so what's happening, and you're noticing, and I'm noticing this in the last 20 years, some manufacturers have gone so downhill when it comes to the hardness of their finish. And I'm just like, whoa, that's insane. Yeah. So what we do is, and the beauty of this is just, I'm going to plug this in, is, and the way I explain it to people is, as a detailer or a paint corrector, you got to go in and you need a bunch of different kinds of polishes, waxes, and pads, because you're going to paint correct a BMW very differently than you would do a Toyota, right? You can't use the same material. With what
Toyota.
Right. So with RestorFX, what we do is we level the playing field. We're going to treat a BMW exactly the same as we would a Toyota, and I would say as the manufacturers evolve and as they really test out and try out other clear coats
on your $100,000 car, right?
Yeah, it's going to be tougher. It's going to become tougher and tougher to work on those vehicles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, every year it changes. Every model it changes for paint correctors, you're saying, or cutting buffers.
Yeah, I remember Cadillac. That paint used to be bulletproof.
GM,
GM Cadillac, absolutely bulletproof. Now, the latest
5 years later,
Southern California, in 2 years, the top panels are starting to oxidize.
Yeah, I'm like, running all that. That's so. I think some guys that are listening to this podcast and they're paint correctors and they own ceramic companies. Like you're gonna paint correct a GM, maybe a Cadillac, right? It's going to come out. You could get it to come out phenomenal, no scratches, all that good stuff. But as soon as you apply ceramic and then you have to go level that ceramic off, I've done it. We've all done it. I've watched guys do it. You're scratching the panel again because the paint's so soft, right? So I'm like, if you own a GM, put RestorFX on it, and then if you want ceramic, do that. I have some paint correcting guys that own companies send us cars to have us do the paint, the RestorFX. They're calling it paint correction, and then they go ahead and apply ceramic to the top of it because they're struggling to get that, as perfect of a finish as you're going to get because the paint's so soft.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so again, I'll go ahead.
This is a whole nother kind of aspect that we don't focus on maybe as much as we should, which is the quality of the finish afterwards. Really, we're all about restoration. We want to make customers' cars look shiny and new and brilliant again, so they feel like they have a value back to their vehicle. But here is a whole nother aspect of it, which is it does upgrade the paint finish, and I
did not even know this.
Yeah, we do allow for a longer longevity of that car. I'll just take personally, I love to talk about this. I have an old Porsche Cayenne that I treat as my truck now. It's my car I can't get rid of because the thing's so darn reliable at this point. But I think it was about 10 years ago, or no, about 8 years ago, I did a RestorFX on it. 4 years later, I did another RestorFX on it. So I had about 4 years of, just using it normal wear and tear that I thought, well, it could probably use another RestorFX. I did another RestorFX 4 years ago. I have washed it consistently every single day at a drive-through, swirl up car wash. That I wanted to see for myself, right? Like, what would it do? And still to this day, I could park that thing, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm really this is my own personal experience. I can still park that thing next to a newer Porsche at the dealership, and there's still that luster, that shine, that brilliance to it. So it's the consistency, the hardness that we're talking about and everything, it's noticeable for sure when you do look at that. So that's a huge aspect to selling this, to have a customer understand, not only are we fixing your damage and giving you new life and brilliance back to that vehicle, but we have, in a sense, upgraded your finish. And it's
so that's a pretty big market for us too. And I was trying to explain this to my guys when we first started trying to get into RestorFX. I'm like, dude, I'm not to say I'm not going after those Lamborghinis and the super high end cars. I'm like, I know an owner of a car wash. It's a pretty big one. It's not the biggest. And this guy on a Saturday and Sunday runs 500 to 600 cars through a car wash. None of those guys are getting ceramic coating on their car, but this car wash, especially the GMs, right? They're getting these cars beat to crap and they're scratching really bad. So I'm like, if I can get 10% or even 2% of 500 to 600 cars per week that run through that car wash, then I'm good. And we're going to make that car look phenomenal. And like you said, Nick, you've been running your car through that car wash practically every day, and that you still see a difference. That's the market, or one of the markets that we really push to, and getting the word out there for that, because the car washes are going to start backing you because they're losing clients left and right every time a guy goes to a paint correction company, and they're like, "Oh man, if you get the ceramic, you can't ever run it through a car wash. Yeah, you got to wash it with a feather, is what I call it, right?"
Yeah.
So that market
can't even look at it. Don't even look at it.
No, you run it through a car wash, don't bring it back, right? And then the customers, I've heard so many people, mad and upset, and they wind up becoming our clients because we're able to acknowledge them. And that, going back a little bit to what you guys were saying, how you're positioning RestorFX in the industry. We've all seen the ceramic business. I think they blew up entirely too fast and didn't acknowledge people on what the difference is, because they think that you're paying $2,000 for ceramic coating. You're not. You're paying $1,600 for paint correction, and then you're paying $300 for ceramic. But you'll get people every time you talk to them on the street, they're like, "Oh man, you got to go to this place. I brought my car over there, and now it looks the ceramic made it look so much better." And I'm like, the ceramic didn't make it look better. You paid $1,600 to have that car look good, and then you put ceramic on it to keep it looking, good, and to make the ease of maintenance and all that good stuff that you have. Well, now we have RestorFX that we can do it for a fraction of the price, and we're not ever removing the clear coat from your car. We're actually building it up and creating a better surface than what you have now. So for all you guys that are out there that are looking to get into the RestorFX or thinking about it, that's some of the ways that we're positioning it and explaining it to clients. Because you don't want to promise. I've had people come in here and tell me a guy told him if he puts ceramic on his car, he'll never have to wash it again.
Yeah.
I couldn't make this guy happy. There was no way possible I could make this guy happy because he thought that was the case, and I don't know where that came from.
And I talked about RestorFX being somewhat difficult to apply, and it's still the hardest part. The actual application, there are mistakes that can be made that you have to undo and redo. Not with ceramic. I mean, there are mistakes with ceramic, but you can teach someone how to do a ceramic coating in 2 days. That is literally, quite literally, wipe on, wipe off, Karate Kid style stuff. And so I think that knowledge is out there now. When it first came out, it was like a kind of like a hidden thing, right? It was like, oh my god, but it's all paint correction, and then the ceramic coating is like the last like 5 minutes, 20 minutes of work.
A funny story.
I think, hold 1 second, Nick. I think that if you guys have, Nick and Alex, have y'all ever dealt with paint correction personally?
Oh yeah.
From my personal experience, I think to be able to teach somebody how to do paint correction is around the same time frame as teaching somebody how to do RestorFX, because
it's a lifetime.
You can burn through a higher end vehicle, and guess what? Now you're having to repaint it. And it takes a specific person to teach that,
it's got different challenges, right? It's got different challenges. There's still challenges in both. They're just very different. And I guess it really comes down to which one would you prefer? You know what I mean?
Remove it or keep it.
Yeah.
We've always said that, paint correction is going to be around. Polishing is going to be around for ages. And there's a time and place for it. Absolutely. We always look at this. We try to speak to the industry and say, look, if you're going to spend any more than 3 or 4 hours on a car, why? One, that means you're paying away quite a bit.
Right.
Either send it to your local RestorFX Center so you can keep your customer, but maybe if you're doing other services at that detail shop, send it to RestorFX to get the paint, restored. Then do all your other services with it. But if you're going to spend more than really 2 or 3 hours on a car paint correcting it, you're losing time and money. And
that's literally one panel, though, Nick.
What was that?
Right.
That's one panel of paint correction.
Well, that's right.
In some instances. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
For us, we always look at like, we never ever batch paint correction because it makes sense. Like if I had a brand new car,
right,
I'm not going to RestorFX it if it doesn't need it. If it has some light hairline scratches, I'm going to take it to my best paint correction guy and I'm going to have him do it. No problem at all. It's just that we're trying to educate the market on where we all fit in. There's a time and place that you have to repaint. There's a time and place where RestorFX makes the most sense. There's a time and place where paint correction makes the most sense. What happened was because of the ceramic influence to the industry, you were able to get such high dollar, but it would take days sometimes to paint correct a car. So now the time and the efficiencies are going, it's starting to become ridiculous and it's no longer profitable. It's no longer, so we are basically coming in and saying, we are right in that middle ground where we're saving cars from being repainted and we're being able to save a lot of time and money and not having to cut away clear coat on a car. And so we always just want to make sure that we position ourselves and for the market, for our people within our industry and detailers, body shop guys, to know that we really understand the market where we fit in. And we don't try to go beyond and say that we're better than this or than this, because the reality is we all have a place, just like PDR. PDR is absolutely perfect if you can fix the dent. But if you can't, it's not the solution. You got to repaint it.
Right.
Yeah. Ryan and I, we've talked about this as PDR guys looking at RestorFX. We compare PDR, paintless dent repair, to body shops, right? And we are faster than a body shop, and our repair is better than a body shop. And typically, up until recently, but most of the time, it's less expensive than a body shop. If you compare RestorFX to paint correction, it's faster, better, and less expensive. It's the same. It's the same exact thing. PDR came in 30 years ago. My dad, I said this in the last podcast, 1991, would walk into a dealership and be like, "Hey, I can push dents out without taking them to the body shop." They're like, "Bullshit. Like, no, you can't. And he's like, give me the car, I'll show you. And now we walk into dealerships right now. We're like, hey, we can fix that really bad car. It's oxidized the whole paint in one day. Give it to me. I'll bring it back tomorrow. They're like, bullshit. And we take it and bring it. It's the same thing 30 years later.
Yeah.
Like, this is all the different connections I'm drawing for PDR guys into. And I know other guys are probably like the RestorFX product too. But if you're in paintless dent repair, we're cheaper, faster, and better in a body shop. And RestorFX is to paint correction too. And for all the paint correction guys out there, I don't know what to tell you, but I want to have one of them on the podcast and interview them. But
right, they should be utilized, like Nick said, they should be utilized in their local RestorFX centers, because if you look at a spot in your shop, all these paint correction companies are only fitting 3 cars in there at the most. Most paint correction companies, and you're only doing 1 to 2 cars a week. If you were able to give a car to RestorFX that was really bad, that really needs it and shouldn't be being buffed, you're gonna free that space up in your shop. A day later, the next morning, your car is going to be restored. All you have to do is put it in, prep it. You really don't even need to prep it, right, Nick and Alex? You could just go like right on it with ceramic coating.
That's right.
Well, you'd want to bake it first,
right?
But there's not a whole lot. There's no additional prep after that. No.
The RestorFX, for me, I bake everything that we send to a ceramic company. That way, when they get it, they're good to go. They can go ahead. If it's got dust on it, wipe it off, start the ceramic process. And then they can move on to all those cars that are brand new from the dealership.
Exactly.
They're just doing a quick polish.
One-stage polish.
You're going to start seeing more revenue come through your shop if you just stop looking at this service as a negative and like a competition.
And your customers are going to be happier too. The guy that's going in and spending $2,000 to $3,000 on the paint correction, the ceramic there's some high expectations with that. You know what I mean?
And then you got to keep those expectations, because if you could get a car ceramic coated and then it's going to get demolished because they're going to go run it through a car wash or something. You never know.
And then they're going to be like, well, this is not what I was sold. Right.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So in the interest of asking questions other people ask, so we're talking ceramic RestorFX. Hopefully we've shown people the differences well enough. We got a coating in the RestorFX Flux coat. Right.
Yeah.
Is RestorFX the only flux coat that there is, or are there others? There's all the other ceramic coatings. Is RestorFX the only flux coat?
So, when we look at competition or possible competition, a lot of people think ceramics are possibly the same thing or different, or we're trying to market it differently. But if we were to separate that as a different category, because we have our own ceramics, right? We have a whole ClearFX line of products that we compete in the ceramic market with. But when you look at actually comparing RestorFX and its technology to something trying to be similar, we have seen through the years, I don't know, Alex. I mean, Alex has been doing this longer than I have. Probably a handful of companies that have tried to develop something similar to ours. I think we've seen some stuff come and go. We've seen some stuff that's kind of coming around, but the reality is we've never really seen anything that is truly what RestorFX does. We've seen products that do really well with maybe shining up a car, but not restoring it. Our probably the biggest thing that separates us from anything that we've seen that might be something similar is that we have a restoration capacity that we haven't seen in any other things. Like I know there's been probably about a handful of companies that we've seen. The problem there is that there's still a lot of preparation and even polishing that's required to get that car to apply something of similar sort. And because we've been the leaders and obviously pioneers in this, we're at least 10, 15 years in chemistry ahead of anything else that we've seen, because we've invested quite a bit of money into R&D. And so we have something really unique that I think would be very difficult for someone to truly copy, but that's very possible. And we welcome that, because at the end of the day, that's just life. That's business. We're not going to shy away from competition. But I will tell you what I think is the most important thing, regardless of a product that might be similar, which is 21 years of experience. There is every car out there that has different manufacturing, from different clear coats to paints to manufacturers doing different things. We have seen it all. And we've been able to navigate through all of these different aspects to allow us to be the leaders because of our knowledge, because of the ability for us to help navigate through any issues or any problems that someone would have.
Yes.
I think that's probably our biggest play in that. But yes, have we seen some stuff out there? Absolutely. We're probably still 98% of the market, but there's nothing that really has truly been like, wow, that's something that's competing with us. But I think we'll be the first to acknowledge that if there is. I mean, there's very possible companies out there that are trying to copy us or find out something similar to what we're doing.
Maybe Ryan, you can add to this too, but I might, just from my perspective, guys, remember I'm 5 months in to RestorFX as a center. I don't even think that's the biggest thing. There's a rich guy. He sees the opportunity, like, wow, this is big. He buys RestorFX, or he gets it from me or somebody else, and he pays a scientist and he reverse engineers the whole thing and he figures out exactly what's in it. I don't even know if that's a thing. I watch too much TV, I guess, but whatever. I got 2 bottles. You mix it up at heart. Like, I got it. Now I'm gonna sell it. Even there. So that takes years or whatever to do that, and then sell it and then market it and build all that stuff. And on top of that, I need a better term for this, but I've called it a business in a box, where like I've needed new business cards for Dent Pro for a long time, and I don't have a marketing person who does that for me. So finally one night I sat on Canva and I made a business card, and I asked my wife, and she's like, "Oh, you do this, like creativity." It took me literally forever, like months. And I kept telling people I haven't ordered cards yet. And for you guys, I'm like, I need marketing materials, I need banners, I need cards, I need shirts, I need the product, all those things. I just go on your website and order it and it's done. It's already made, created, like it's finished. So Ryan, I mean, that's for me. If someone can have the same product, like I'll give these cans of somebody to someone else and be like, go start your own RestorFX Center. Good luck. Right. And every time I have a problem, I message the corporate team, and within sometimes 2 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes, I have an answer to what's going on. So I don't even think it's that, Nick. I think it's even just everything behind all of that. That's why you're 15 years ahead of somebody. If they tried to compete, it would be a big task. Ryan, what do you think?
Aside from the product being great, right? We all love it. We're little fanboys. It's the support and all the different services I've ever been through. I mean, we've been through that before. Like PPF, you spend, I think I invested close to 15 to 20 grand on trying to get into PPF. I go to training. It's a 3 or 4 day training, and then they send you off and you're done. Right. So then I'm stuck and I'm like, man, this is the worst business model. It was 3M, right? 3M's a huge company. You feel like that company would want to make you more successful to sell more product and create a bigger name, right, in that industry. And that's in a lot of different types of our, industries that we're in do that. RestorFX doesn't. Like Corey said, if we have a problem, my technicians have a problem, they were in messaging, they message, and then boom, the product is the situation is fixed and it's controlled. And then on top of marketing and creating a legitimate business model for your local center, they have it all mapped out for you. And that's the biggest thing for me that saved me a ton of time, because I wrap my brain, just like you said, making business cards is you spend a day and a half doing it.
It shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't be, but when you run a business and you got to fix dents and you got a family and you got a swim team and you got other business stuff and fires you got to put out, and like business cards are super important. Like they're cheap and you give them out, like, but still, I had old business cards that had my wrong address on it. And I'm like, oh, these work for now. Like I'll write my cell phone on there. Like I'm the first year in business. Like I haven't been in business for 30 years or whatever. It's like, it's ridiculous, but it's one of those things that like just gets pushed off until you finally do it. And I love my business cards. I'm super stoked about them. They're fantastic. And now I can just reorder them. But the point being is, and it's not just that, it's all the marketing material. So much stuff I haven't even ordered. Packages to go into dealerships to front load ceramic coating on stuff, like is another. I haven't even done any of that stuff, but it's all there. Like when I want to grow, I can just go on the website, the portal, and I can go in the back end portal. I want marketing materials for all the stuff. Cool. I want scientific videos of why the hardness level studied by some NASA approved something or whatever. There's some form in there. I'm like, I got this printed out. If someone asks, I'll be like, here you go. You want to see this? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's all there.
We really appreciate that. Honestly, that's been Alex is the technical guy, right? He's the technical department of our company. He and all that he's done, and everybody that has been part of his team has taken that on. And I'm the business side, and I realized that Alex and I came together and said, well, that's your department. This is my department. And we looked at this and said, well, if we're doing all this, let's do this for everybody. Let's get all A to Z from running a business. Let's get it all for the, for our partners, for everybody. And let's grow this brand. Let's be a leader in this industry. And that's been a big part of what we do. We really appreciate you guys acknowledging that. And I think that's a strong suit of where RestorFX stands in the market is we have a great product. We could just give you the stuff and go, here you go. But we want to do a lot more than that. And that's a big part of being part of RestorFX. Yes, could anybody make their own stuff? Absolutely. But it takes a day and a half to make a business card. Imagine what it takes to make, it's all time. It all takes time. It all takes money. And we are basically giving this whole package to someone. But that is a whole business ready to go with an exclusive territory that allows you to have something very unique in the market. Really, when was the last time that there was a blue ocean opportunity that no one else is doing in the market? I mean, it's really hard to come by.
1991 with PDR. 1991 with PDR.
You go.
I think so. My dad was one of the 6 original Dent Pro franchises in the West Coast, and Dent Wizard started 2 years earlier, and that was the blue ocean. And now there's literally hundreds of thousands of PDR techs from different skill levels. Probably 12,000 amazing ones, but there's hundreds of thousands of guys that have metal rods and push on metal. So to go into that, go ahead.
And I will say, we have developed all this, but to not oversell it, we do have a little passion required kind of hashtag that we follow with all this, because the reality is that as much as we have a proven model and many markets around the world are having a lot of success with it, when you open up a new business in your own new market, you do have to be a pioneer. You do have to take this information and actually pave a path. Think about the new promised land of America. There's just trees and open fields. There's nothing. And you have to almost pave those roads and make those paths into that market. We're still needing to do that in every market we go to. Now it's getting easier, right? We have machinery that helps pave those paths, right? We have different things that come together. We have a team that comes and supports you to help you get started, but you are in some sense paving your own paths in that market. And so we don't just say, oh, you're going to have success tomorrow. The first day you open up, it's just all, but you do have a lot of support there. We have a lot of people that have done the exact same thing that you're going to be doing in your own market. We have all that support, but it does take a little bit of passion and a little bit of a pioneering attitude to be successful with it. But the market is there. The land is there for you to take. It just needs to be paved.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a lot of, if people listen to my previous podcast, the PDR Coach, which kind of morphed into the Masters of Recon podcast, I have a mindset, which is a BEAR mindset, which is BEAR, belief, environment, actions, results. You have to believe in what you're doing. You have to surround yourself with the people. I surround myself with Ryan, lots of other RestorFX Centers, you guys. That doesn't mean anything. Like, there's a lot of people that I know that have signed up for the RestorFX license that aren't even successful as I am 5 months in, because they didn't do that last super crucial part, which is the action. Nothing happens without you doing stuff. Great product.
There are a couple guys out there.
Game changer. It doesn't matter if you don't do anything, if you don't have someone applying the product and you don't go find cars to get the product. And that's the same thing with everything. Obviously, action is super, super important and the key to literally everything in life. But
the support's out there for those guys, man. I've talked to quite a few of them at the Mobile Tech Expo, right? Yeah. And I think some of those guys are doing a little bit better, but it was just because of the action. Like you said, all the support is there. They can call any RestorFX Center, me, you, Mikey, all those guys.
We'll answer. Yeah.
Dude, we'll answer any question you got. So it's just the support doesn't stop at just RestorFX. Even the centers, you can call anyone.
And we don't give up on those guys. We're constantly
for sure For sure.
Trying to
You can't make
help
someone
and-
take action, right? You can lead the horse to water.
No, yeah, all right.
But that's the super important part. Like Nick said, yeah, you got to take the action. And the support's there, the resources are there, the product is there, the business model is there. You got to do it, just like anything else. So, dude, phenomenal. You 50 if 50 centers don't sign up from this podcast, I'd be surprised. But Ryan and I are fanboys. We talk about it. Challenge accepted. Ryan and I talk about it. We're fanboys. It just is what it is. I don't hide from that stuff. How do you sign up for a center? Like, what do you need? Like, if someone's listening to this, they're like, okay, it sounds pretty good. I understand the difference now between this and that, and ceramic and flux coat and paint correction versus RestorFX, all that stuff. Like, is my territory open? Like, what do I do?
Well, first off, we're not high pressure sales at all. We want to make sure that this is a right fit, because we see not the next 3 months, we see the next 30 years, right? So we want to make sure that everybody's the right fit. Call us up either through our 800 number that you can find on our website. So RestorFX.com will get you, and then there's an opportunities page. You click on that, you can get our email, you can fill out a form online, or you can even call us. But what I would challenge people is just say, have a conversation with us. It doesn't hurt. We're not here to, pressure anybody. Have a conversation. Do you like the attitude, kind of the way that we're positioning this? Do you like the way that you can see us working together closely for a long time? And if it resonates well with you and it fits well with you, we love the opportunity to continue to grow with you in that aspect. But RestorFX.com obviously gets you all that kind of information, gets you with our sales team who, again, is just, we're grateful for anybody that wants to sign up and be part of RestorFX. It's a privilege for us to have people dedicate their time and energy and life to a business that we're very passionate about. So we look at this as a true partnership. It's something that we couldn't do it without everybody, our partners, and so it's something that we're very grateful for. But give us a call. Just take a look at some of the information that we have, and if it resonates with you, then the rest is history. And the thing is, a demonstration, whether it be live or we even have a new video we just launched to actually see a demonstration it's not in person, but it's as in person as you could possibly get through a video. You can actually see the whole process for yourself and how this works. It's a private video. It's not something that we have public, but it really dives into all of the steps and the actual application of RestorFX. We're happy to share that with you. If you get with us and kind of have a chat with us, we can share that link to you. And I think that's probably the first step of just kind of being able to better understand what RestorFX is all about.
And sign up if you want to make some money. Let's put it that way.
There he is. The founder.
If you want to make some money, we got the technology for it.
Hey, this is what I have to say. If you're not going to take the territory, someone else will. We're growing.
Yeah,
I mean, it's going to be filled up, and people will have success because there is a market for this. I mean, but it doesn't mean that it's right for everybody. But if you wait too long, that territory will be filled, and we're starting to get that more and more as a serious conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Killer, dude. You got anything else, Ryan?
Is it?
No, man. Just for you guys, the phone number is 1-800-404-4107. I would definitely recommend giving them a call and at least talking and seeing what they have to offer and everything that goes into it.
And we can also email as well. Yeah, maybe you can plug that in.
What's the email? Go ahead, say, Alex.
Well, it'd be info@RestorFX.com. I don't know if we could put a link here somewhere, possibly.
Yeah, the team will do that for sure.
Yeah, they'll do that.
Yeah.
RestorFX, guys. Yeah. RestorFX. There's no E in there, which I made the mistake of for a couple months before I realized after I had the license. I was like, oh shit. I was putting RestorFX. It's not RestorFX.com. The letter F, the letter X.com.
It'll be down here somewhere, right?
Yeah, we'll just look at the show notes.
I was just going to say, we really appreciate, your guys' commitment to this. Really, it's about exposing what we do to the market, to the recon, to the detailing, to the body shop markets, letting people know who we are, what we're all about, and doing it with kind of an understanding that we know our place. We're not here to try to necessarily say that we're the best in this and we're the best in this, but we are the best in what we do. And if you want to be part of it, it's pretty exciting. And we're really grateful for, again, you guys bringing this to the market. Let people know what's up about RestorFX.
We're excited about it.
Yeah, guys. So to wrap it up, if you guys, so we are in once a month episodes on this right now. We are in a testing period to see how many people listen, how many people follow, how many people mention the podcast. So if you do sign up for RestorFX, mention that you heard it from the Masters of Recon podcast, because if you do, we will continue to do more and maybe even get back to a weekly podcast. We shall see.
Let's do it.
But so if you guys are calling in, mention Masters of Recon podcast. It helps us to just know how many people are paying attention, because that's the hardest part. I can see downloads, but I don't know how many people are paying attention. So if you do that, mention that. Nick, Alex, Ryan, everybody, thank you guys. I really enjoyed it, and we'll see you next month.
Pleasure, guys. See you later.
I appreciate it, guys. Have a great one.
Thank you for listening to the Masters of Recon podcast. If you got any value from the show, then please subscribe and share the show to your favorite social media platform.